Okay, so the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, probably the most talked about camera of 2016, but not necessary for all the right reasons. Now I'm going to approach this review as someone that's possibly just been asked by a friend to let them know what I think about it, whether I think it's a good choice for them, what the good points are, what the bad points are. So I'll try and touch on everything that I've experienced over the last 3 months of actually using the camera. Lots of reviews online where people haven't necessarily even touched the camera and they just built their review based on the specs and that kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed the review. I do apologise for the quality of the lighting in the video. I've got a really bad cold. I've had a cold for a while now and I did mess up on a couple of things, but I hope you enjoy the review and I hope it kind of gives you more information about the camera. Okay, so it's 5 days before Christmas and I finally got round to finding some time to do a quick video review of the 5D Mark IV. I bought this in September when it first came out and I've been using it on various jobs for clients. I've used it for stills for commercial jobs. I've used a video feature for some commercial jobs where I mixed it in with some aerial work. And basically I've used it for my own personal use and for stock and things like that. So I've kind of used most of the functions. I feel like I've tested enough of it to give a kind of unbiased review, if you like, just to kind of give you an idea of what the camera's all about, how it feels, how it works, how it operates, and how it compares to things like the older 5D Mark II and the Mark III. So first things first, what I want to say is this isn't a specialist camera. If you take cameras like the Canon EOS 5D SR with its 50 megapixel image sensor and the no low pass filter, it creates incredibly sharp images for commercial stills, for landscapes, that kind of thing. But it does lack in other areas. I won't go into those, but it's more specialist towards that sort of high quality, high end stills photography. Then you've got cameras like the 1DX Mark II, which is geared towards fast frame, fast shooting sports photography. Also does video very similar to this, but that's geared more towards the high end professional sports photography and things like wildlife photography, stuff like that. Then you've got the Sony a7S II, which is great for night photography, night videography and photography, because it's got such an amazing sensor in low light. So really the word is horses for courses. All cameras are different, all have their strengths and weaknesses, and my overall impression of the 5D Mark IV is that it's a general workhorse camera. It's a jack of all trades, master of a couple, but lacking in other areas. But overall, it's just a brilliant camera for general photography, video thrown in. Basically for what I need, it's perfect. I wouldn't say perfect with regards to video, but as a robust, weather-sealed, decent, fast, reliable camera, I think it's fantastic. Coming from the 5D Mark II, it's great. Now, I will go through some of the list of things I've got here on my list. First things first, the build quality, overall look, feel, and the menu system are all very good. They're intuitive. If you've come from any other Canon camera, such as the 7D Mark II or 7D Mark I, or the 5D Mark III, you're going to feel pretty much at home with the menu system and the layout and the controls and functions. And that's one thing I like about the 5D series, is that with each iteration, with each upgrade, there's not that much added to the layout. There's not much change to it. There's a few new buttons on this one, a few new custom functions, that kind of thing. But overall, it felt familiar, even from the 5D Mark II, which is really old now. It's about 8 years old. So yeah, from that point of view, it was good. Now, one thing I've got written here is there's a lot of 5-star reviews online for this camera. Now, beware when you look at those, because a lot of those were actually written by people that had never even seen the camera or never held one, never used it. They basically read the specs, made their own mind up about it, gave it a 5-star review, and that's it. What you want to do is go to places like maybe Amazon and B&H, but also bear in mind that some of these might be written by people that are obviously bigging up the camera for profit, I don't know, whatever. So you've got to take a lot of the reviews with a pinch of salt. But from my scanning of all these reviews, it seems that there's a lot of people out there that are very happy with the camera. All the ones that aren't happy with it don't own it, or maybe they've owned it and sent it back. But the majority of people seem to be very happy with it, like I am. So let's go dive right in. Let's go straight to the elephant in the room, and that's 4K video on the 5D Mark IV. Now, the biggest point about this is the MJPEG, the codec, the MJPEG codec at 500 megabits per second. Now, I've done a separate video on this, so you can see that somewhere else. If you're on the 5D Mark IV review page, you'll see that somewhere else on that page. It's also on my YouTube channel, so you'll see that I've compared this camera with other cameras such as the GH4 and maybe the X5R
RAW, which is on the DJI Inspire 1 drone. Now, it's not such a big thing because there's other cameras out there that do have similar bit rates, including the 1DX Mark II. Everything in this video with regards to 4K is exactly the same as the 1DX Mark II, except for this doesn't do 60p in 4K. So other than that, it's exactly the same. So I didn't see that many people complaining about the 1DX Mark II. In fact, people like Philip Bloom, who I admire, I like his work and I trust what he says. He actually said the video was fantastic on the 1DX Mark II. So it's the same with this. It's exactly the same. So if you've read those reviews and seen the quality of the footage, you know it's the same with this. But the other issues with this with 4K video is the 1.74 crop. Everyone was expecting this to be a 4K full frame sensor to get all the benefits of that, but it's actually ended up being a 1.74 crop. Now, again, if you've got wide angle lenses, such as I think it's an 11 to 22mm lens or 11 to 18mm lens, there are lenses you can do that will actually cope with that and still give you about an 18mm equivalent lens. Otherwise, you just stand back a bit further, but you're not really going to get the super wide video that we've come to love with full frame sensors with the 4K on this. So it is a bit of a pain. But saying that, I'm filming now on the GH4, which actually has a 2.3 crop in 4K mode, but I've got the speed booster on there with the Canon 16 to 35mm, and I find I can still get pretty wide shots with that. So with the 16mm on here, I can still get maybe 24 to 28mm. I can still get fairly wide shots. So it's not a biggie for me. It's not a massive issue, especially for what I film most of the time. So that is an issue for a lot of people, but there's various workarounds. Then you've got the MJPEG 500 megabits per second bit rate. Now with that, it produces huge files because you're getting 25 or 30 8.8 megapixel still photos per second when you're filming in 4K. Creates huge file sizes, very difficult to work on in any editing program, even with a powerful computer. You've either got to transcode it into something more workable, or you can use a proxy edit. So you can actually create a proxy file and then you get much smoother editing. So I do either of those, but I normally use proxy editing. So again, it's the same with any other camera. Like I said, the DJI X5R actually goes up to 2.3 gigabits per second, which is huge. It's 4.5 times the size of this. So it's just a workaround. It's just so happens it's a big megabit rate. Okay, so it's similar to the 1DX Mark II. Although that in 60 frames a second actually shoots at, I think it's 800 megabits per second, so it's huge. No focus peaking or zebras on this camera, that's a real pain. I love it on the GH4. If a camera like the GH4 can have it, I don't know why Canon didn't put it in. I'm hoping that Black Lantern will actually do a bit of a break on this and create a workaround to actually put that onto the camera, because it would really help. But with regards to focus peaking, it's when you've got the dual pixel autofocus RAW on here, dual pixel autofocus, it works amazingly well. So the peaking isn't absolutely necessary. You just basically touch what you want in focus on the screen and you're pretty much guaranteed it's going to stay in focus. It's really, really accurate. With regards to the zebras, I just use the old basic way of seeing on the screen whether it looks okay, and using everything I would for stills photography, using the metering system and using just my eyes on the screen to see how it's looking. Again, zebras are nice because it just makes life a lot easier. If I'm filming on this with an external recorder in 1080p, I can use the zebras and peaking on the Atomos Ninja Flame, which I'm using here. Can't use it on 4K, but if I was filming in 1080p, then yeah, it works there, and I can actually get the zebras and peaking. No external recording in 4K, which is a real pain, because this shoots at 422 internal, but it's only 8-bit, which means if you're going to do some editing on it, things like the sky, you may get some banding issues, whereas with 10-bit, you wouldn't get that. Now, things like the GH4 allow me to record externally 4K in 10-bit 422, so to edit is a dream. It's fantastic. You've got so much more information, you get very little banding, and you get really smooth files. So that's a pain with this, no external recording, but again, like I said, you can record externally in 1080p, so I can actually go up to ProRes HQ with that, so that's good. No C-Log, there wasn't any that came with the camera. You've obviously got all the usual profiles, such as neutral and things like that, but there's no C-Log. But there are two companies online, or two people online, that have created their own C-Logs. I bought one for $10, it's okay. There's apparently a better one out there, so if you do a bit of a Google search for C-Log for the Canon 5D Mark IV, then you're going to find those, and they are pretty good. No articulating screen, that is a pain, because I'm used to it again on the GH4, which cost a lot less money, and it was out a few more years ago than this was released. And I find it quite helpful. You know, if I'm in difficult situations where I need to be able to have the camera low down, obviously I can't see the screen. But the biggest and quickest and easiest workaround I found, was using my Samsung Galaxy S7 on an adapter on top of the camera, and then just using the Canon app and the Bluetooth or Wi-Fi connectivity, and then it works perfectly. In fact, it's better than an articulating screen because I can carry it anywhere. I can take it off the camera, I can be 30, 40 yards away from the camera and still operate everything as though I was using the rear screen. So if you're a videographer that likes to set things up properly and take your time, then it shouldn't really be much of an issue to use your phone or an iPod or something else as a secondary screen that you can put anywhere on the camera or even carry with you as you're filming. So again, it's a workaround. It'd be nice to have the reticulating screen or the articulating screen, but the reason they kept it off maybe for weather sealing issues or something, I don't know, but they just did. So there are workarounds, and you can do it if you've got a spare iPhone, iPod, whatever on you. Then we've got rolling shutter, awful. I won't deny it. In 4K or whatever, it's just awful. You know, panning with a subject, all the buildings just go crazy. It just looks awful. So for fast panning shots, you're not going to use this for that. It's just unusable. So, you know, it's a really big issue. It's terrible. And I noticed even when I had the camera on a tripod, using a 70 to 200mm lens at 200mm, even the slight movement from the wind or something on the tripod would cause the rolling shutter. So it's just terrible. It's really, really bad. Obviously, if you're filming in a wider angle, it's okay, but using telephoto on a fast-moving subject, absolutely forget it. It's just terrible, not unusable. Yeah, CF cards and SD cards. It's still using the old ones, and I think you've got up to UDMA mode 7 for the CF card. Now in here, I've currently got a 256GB Lexar Professional 1066 times UDMA 7. And to be honest, it will keep filming until the card's full, but 256GB isn't that great. With the external recorder there, I can go up to 1TB and just keep recording and recording. So, you know, it will record, I think, up to an hour. 256GB will give me about an hour of recording, which is pretty crazy considering those cards at the moment cost around £200. So I'm not going to be buying more and more of those just to keep filming. And then you've got the SD slot, and I don't think it's that great for 4K video. I have used, in fact in here at the moment, I've got a micro SD card, the tiny 64GB SanDisk Extreme Pro, which actually does record 4K video, but it won't go forever. So for long video recording, it's not going to work. But then you've got the last thing is the, oh yes, when you're offloading footage, especially footage, you pretty much are recommended to use the Canon utility software. I had an issue where I did a job for a client, came back, and when I looked at the files on my computer as a hard drive, so I plugged in the camera, saw it as a separate hard drive, there were 3 files there, but only one had any data on it. Even though the actual hard drive itself was showing that more had been used, 2 of the files were showing up as 0. So I offloaded them onto the computer to see if they were there. Absolutely nothing there, so I ended up having to delete everything and then use some recovery software to get the files back. Then, when I used the utility software, all the files offloaded perfectly in full resolution with all the information there. It put a bit of a scare through me, so just recommended that when you do, if you have one of these cameras or if you're going to buy one, just make sure that you always use the utility software from Canon to offload all of your data. Now, there some of the bad points or some of the issues with the 4K video. The good points are you've got dual pixel autofocus, which is amazing. It's very, very accurate. If I had someone walking towards me, all I've got to do is tap on their face on the screen and it will track them all the way towards me. And it doesn't have to be a person or a face. And incidentally, even if they walk off the screen and come back on fairly quickly, it will still recognize that face. Also, you've got, it will track anything. So if you're filming a boat coming into harbour, you're on a static lockdown camera, there's a boat coming in, hit the boat on the screen, and it will track that boat all the way in until it goes off the screen again. But just beware that it will then hunt after it's gone, so it will probably start focusing on the background. But yeah, really like that. It's very accurate, very fast, and will lock onto anything. Face detection toggle switch. So let's say you've got 2 people in the shot and they're walking different angles, or one's walking past the other, you can actually toggle from one face to the other, and it will then lock onto that person. Toggle it the other way and it will lock back onto the other person. So it's very handy if you're doing a two-person interview or something. It just works really nicely. Headphone socket, yeah, that's great. It was lacking in the 5DS. It's always good to have a headphone socket so you can measure your audio input. And audio on this, I would never use the built-in microphone. I use, like I'm using here, a lavalier mic or a Rode Video Mic Pro, something like that. Just use external audio, but it's good to be able to measure it with the headphones so you can actually hear what you're saying. Then you've got built-in Wi-Fi, NFC and Bluetooth. Now they're good, again, if you want to use your smartphone on top to actually use the app and operate the camera completely from your phone remotely, which is again better than an articulating screen, then yeah, it works really well. I didn't notice many, if any, loss of communication. Once it's set, it's pretty solid, as long as you don't walk too far away or have loads of things in between you and the camera, but it worked pretty well for me. Yeah, the app is very good. It's very quick to connect, it's stable, and when you've got the camera on your actual phone or your iPod or iPad, then it's very, very good. It's exactly the same as using the rear screen. You can do all of your controls from the app. I love it. I think it's really, really good. It's really handy, especially if I was filming myself now with this camera. I could have the iPhone or iPad or iPod or Samsung phone, and I could actually see what I'm filming and make any corrections, or I can set everything up from here. As a solo person here, I have to judge the focusing distance, set it, and then sit down and work out, and hopefully it'll be all right. Whereas using the 5D Mark IV with the dual pixel autofocus, I can sit down, tap myself on the screen and then start recording, knowing it's going to track my face whether I lean backwards or forward. So that's absolutely brilliant. GPS is great, built-in GPS to have that. The video quality is superb, regardless of what anyone thinks of the MJPEG and everything. The video quality is very good, and it is a step up from the 5D Mark III. I think those files were, and you can see if you're reading the review as well, that there's various people that have said that the 5D Mark III video in 1080p, didn't have 4K, was actually a bit mushy and you had to use post-processing sharpening for it. With this, I've noticed it comes out extremely sharp, very, very nice quality. And yeah, I can definitely use it as stock, and I've already had one test file accepted for stock on Pond 5, so I know it's good enough for stock, so perfect for me for that. Then we've got the 1080p outputs to external recorder, like I've said before. So I can output this to the Atomos Ninja Flame, 1080p, 422, ProRes HQ, highest quality files, fantastic, in 10 bits, so any editing I will do, I won't get any banding or anything in the skies. So that's a bonus for that. I just wish they would do it for 4K as well. So they're the good points with that. Now for me, it's good for, as I've said in various other videos, I do stock videos, so for me to have this camera out and about, I've got a 30 megapixel stock stills camera, so I can go and shoot some high resolution stills of, maybe I'll go to Birmingham and shoot the whole city in 1 or 2 days, and just all the parts of Birmingham there, or any city. And while I'm there, I can also do some 1080p or 4K video files. So to have all of that in one camera is a bit of a first for me. The GH4, which I'm filming on now, does amazing video quality. I absolutely love it for that. But the stills are rubbish, and I know they wouldn't get accepted for stock. So it's very hard for me to find a hybrid camera that does everything that I need. Now, as well as stock, I would maybe, when I'm photographing a wedding, do the occasional 4K video clip, or 1080p 60 frames a second for slow motion. So again, I've got a high resolution stills camera, and then I can just do some quick video clips to add into the slideshow later. Similarly, with a client I had recently, I was doing lots of aerial clips of a stately home in Dorset, using the Inspire 1. And then when I was on the ground, I was using the camera to do some stills and also to do some 4K video of time lapses and things like that. So, you know, again, it's horses for courses. For me, this fits perfectly into my work routine. Now, I will say that if you are a videographer, this isn't for you. I would say if you're doing big events, big corporate events, long interviews, that kind of thing, then you're not going to use this. And I don't either. So for me, I use something like this, a dedicated proper film camera, video camera, where I've got XLR inputs for really, really good audio. I've got hot swappable cards, so I can actually run it for unlimited amount of time. And give you an example, this is the Sony PMW EX1. I've had this since about 2008, and it is amazing. it's not the best image quality in the world anymore. It still does really good 1080p video, but it's only 35 megabits per second. So we've come a long way in 8 years. But I did a big job not so long ago. It was actually this year, early in the year. I had to film a world record attempt for 4.5 days. That was 108 hours. And this camera, by using the hot swappable cards, it did not stop recording for 4.5 days. It got wet, it got rained on, it never really overheated. It got a little bit warm during the day when the sun was out, but we were on the top of a double-decker bus. One day the wind was so bad and the rain, it was coming in, got the camera completely wet, but it just kept recording. And again, great audio. I've got lots of different things I can use on this camera. It is only 1080p, but there are newer versions of it. And you've got as well, nowadays, there's much better 4K models than this. But my point is, if I was filming long speeches at a wedding or big events or anything like that, I would always use something like this as opposed to the Canon. This wasn't designed, doesn't even look like a video camera, wasn't designed to be a full-on video camera. Let me get that straight. This was. And things like this, I'm looking at buying a 4K model version of something like this from Sony or the Panasonic, maybe even a Canon, but I don't really like Canon video cameras, but love Sony, love Panasonic. So I'm looking now to get a 4K version of this and sell this on, even though this is just an amazing workhorse. I love it. So for videographers, get a proper video camera. Do not rely on anything like this because they're just not designed to do that. So as a hybrid camera, it's great for me for what I need, but you have to look at it if you're going to fork out £3,000 to £3,500 or dollars, whether it's worth it for you. If you're upgrading from a Canon 5D Mark II, absolutely, definitely worth it. If you're looking for a video camera, don't bother. If you're looking for a hybrid that kind of does everything you want when you're going out and about, it's actually a really fun camera to use. All of the things like time-lapse, the dual pixel autofocus, everything on there, you'd have a lot of fun with the camera and you get some great results. So let's go back to my list. Yeah, it's bad for filming long events, fast-moving subjects because of the jello, and also the CF and SD cards are a bit antiquated now, but it does cope with them, so that's fine. And if you're going to shoot in 1080p, then you can use an external recorder. Now, let's have a look at stills photography. The 30.4 megapixel sensor and the Digic 6 Plus processor are great. A big upgrade from the 5D Mark II. And I did some tests when I first got it, just to make sure that the image quality was as good, if not better than the 5D Mark II, which I absolutely loved. Wasn't so hot on the 5D Mark III. I rented one for a couple of weddings. Didn't like it as much as the 5D Mark II. So for me, this was brilliant. Stills perfect. Lovely, lovely big files. Maybe the 50 megapixel 5DS and 5DSR are a bit too much for most people, whereas this is a nice compromise in between. So yeah, I was happy with those. 61 AF points, 42 of those are cross type. And you've also got a 24% expanded range in the middle from the 5D Mark III. So you've got a slightly bigger area for autofocus. The autofocus is very good and it's very fast. I've used it on runners coming towards me. I've used it on dirt bikes when we have the motocross on the beach in Weymouth. And I was using it on countless motorbikes, screaming towards me, going round, and I barely missed a shot. It is so fast, so accurate and so sharp. I was really, really pleased. Again, coming from the 3.9 frames per second Mark II, it's heaven. 7 frames per second, super fast autofocus, really accurate, brilliant. So for sports, it's actually very good. 7 frames per second is actually pretty good with the autofocus and everything. Then you've got the AF area selection button. So just under the main toggle here, you've got an AF focus selection button, which is great. So if you're looking through the camera and you want to change to maybe just a central point, you can hit that button, hit your autofocus, your selector up here, then select whichever you want, move around the screen. So if you're shooting something, so if I want that in focus and I'm facing about here, I can then just click on that, toggle it over to focus on here, and just set it at that. Whereas in the past, I'd have to take myself away from the camera and use various settings that way. So for me, that's really good. It's a really handy little button, and I think it's customizable as well. So you can maybe change it to change the ISO instead. So there's lots of customizable features on the camera. So it's a great feature, but that new button's very good. Dual pixel autofocus, I've already said about that, is fantastic. And it actually works incredibly well with stills and with video. So again, just being able to touch the screen with a fantastic touch screen. I never thought I'd actually like it that much, but I do now. I'm used to it. It's actually a lot quicker to go through the menu system rather than having to keep going through everything and, you know, and finding what you need that way. So yeah, touchscreen works really well. Continuous mode's good. Yeah, you've got an expandable ISO. So the native ISO goes up to 32,000, which when you blow it up doesn't look fantastic. You've got a lot of grain and noise in there, but when you see it on a screen, on a monitor, it's actually pretty good. It's almost usable for web use. I haven't done any prints from that yet, so I may well try that. I'll do maybe a 16 by 12 print at 32,000 ISO, just see how good it comes out. And it obviously expands to, what is it, 102,400. Now, I don't know many people that work in that sort of light. To be honest, I either do long exposure at 100 ISO, or I will add light if I need it indoors. I very rarely go out shooting natural light in midnight, so I don't think anyone really ever uses that, to be honest, so it doesn't bother me. That high ISO stuff, up to 12,800, I think it works really, really well, all very usable, so that's fine for me. As long as it's good enough for things like weddings where you've got low light during the first dance and things like that, perfect at the reception. Yep, the images, I've said, are crisp, clean and super sharp. Really, really like them. Really happy with what's come out so far. At first you weren't able to process the RAW unless you had the Canon software. Now there's an upgrade for Lightroom and also for Photoshop. So now, perfect, you can just throw them straight into Photoshop or Lightroom, edit them as you would normally, and love the files. Fantastic. That's great. And also one thing I noticed is where I've underexposed shots in various jobs. I was shooting in a gallery, where an art gallery, where we had two pianos and I was doing some shots. Underexposed one, but I thought I'd keep the shot. And when I looked on the computer, I was actually able to recover so much detail without introducing any noise or these lines or banding or any sort of issues. It just brought up the detail in those shaded areas. I was really impressed, and that is going to be great for weddings, where you've got a bride in a white dress, groom in a dark suit. If you want to pull those details out of a dark suit without getting any additional noise or banding, then it's fantastic. You can really pull those details out. You know, the 30 megapixel sensor with, you know, obviously improved capabilities and things works really well. So really chuffed with that as well. Not many more to go now. Like I said, the dynamic range is very good. Wi-Fi and NFC and the GPS is good. Like I said, the touchscreen is absolutely superb. Really happy with that. Works really well. Yeah, the built-in time-lapse is fantastic. Obviously, to do time-lapse in the past, you have to take a whole series of photos, load them into something like QuickTime to actually produce the file, or if you've got a GoPro, you load it into their software. But with this, it's all done in camera. Now, it's only up to 1080p, so it will take a series of photos. You can set all the parameters, so you can do it as long as you want, the intervals as short or as long as you want, and it will actually throw out a 1080p high definition file for you. Hopefully there'll be maybe a workaround where it'll produce bigger files, I don't know, but it does work really well. I was really pleased with some of the time lapses I got of moving clouds, darkening skies, that kind of thing. So yeah, really happy with that, to have that. Like I said, the camera's a lot of fun. You can go out and do some high resolution stills, bit of 4K video, bit of slow motion video in 1080. You can do some time lapse. So as a like I say, a full-on workhorse jack of all trades camera, it's actually really good. You've got the improved weather sealing, which is great. I think they've improved things like the battery compartment under here, so you've got a bit of a rubber seal around there now as well. So they've just made it slightly better for weatherproofing. And it's also the first Canon full-frame camera to continuously focus in live view during stills capture. So it's another bonus for stills photographers when they're using the rear screen and things. Loads of customization options, so you can use all the function buttons on here. Most of them are customizable, possibly too many. Can get a bit confusing when you look at it, but it's great to be able to, if you buy this camera, sit down for a day or two and just go through everything and customize it to your personal taste. I particularly like using this, which used to be, and it still is on most cameras, the depth of field preview button. I've now got that to switch from normal focus, one-shot autofocus, to AI servo focus. So if I'm shooting and I'm using one shot and then I see something I want to track, I'll just put my finger there on that, switch straight to AI servo and track it that way. So again, it's just good to set the camera up with all the buttons so you know exactly where they are, and before you know it, it becomes like an old friend and you know exactly what you're doing. Lastly, I've got on here is just the Canon color. One thing I love about Canon, I've always liked, is the color space that comes out of the cameras. Skin tones, autumnal shots, things like that, they just seem to have got the color really right on here. So I just think it's great for that. Like I said, I'm going to end this basically on that. I think the camera overall is very good. After using it for 3 months, it's, like I said, it's a robust, proper camera, and it's reliable, it won't let you down. But the only downsides, like I said, are the video side, if you let it get you down. If you know the workarounds and if you're prepared to do them and you want to shoot some 4K video, shorter clips like myself, then yeah, I would say get this camera. As an upgrade from the 5D Mark II, it's an absolute no-brainer. You will love it. It will make your life complete. Well, not complete, but you know what I mean. But it will really improve things. It will give you a lot more fun with your photography. You'll get much better results, more workable images, and the 4K video. If you're upgrading from the 5D Mark III and you're not interested in video, it's probably not really that worth it unless you want the extra megapixels and all the other additional features that are on the camera. But really, for most stills photographers, you can get out of the 5D Mark III pretty much what you can get out of this. At the end of the day, an image is an image. It's what you do to create that image, not so much the camera. But some people may want the additional things, so £3,500. If you can get one cheaper for maybe about 3,000, might even be some second-hand ones out there already on eBay where people have bought it, hate the video, and they're selling it. I would say snap one up if it's under 3,000, or maybe wait until the price comes down. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. As an overall camera, I think it's fantastic. Bit peed off with some of the faults with it, but hey, that's the way it goes. I'm a stills photographer first, getting more into video, but like I said, I use dedicated videos, whether it's the Inspire one or things like this for other video work. So I hope that helps in a way. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm always available. Ask me any questions, and if I've missed anything on this or you want some things clarifying, then just put them in the comments or send me an email. I'll be happy to answer them. So thanks very much, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that review, and it's maybe answered some questions you were looking to get answered from a professional that's used the camera in a professional capacity and also a personal capacity. Hope I've covered all the points. I've probably missed a couple off, but I've got a cold, so like I said, I've messed a couple of things up to do with the review, like the lighting and things. But I hope it got the message across about what I think about this camera, what its good points are, what its bad points are, and that kind of thing. What I will say is, imagine this camera was released without its predecessors, the 5D Mark II and 5D Mark III. I think even though it's got some shortcomings, it's actually an amazing camera. It's still in its own right fantastic. And a couple of online magazines have actually given it the Camera of the Year status. That will annoy a lot of people that were looking for some qualities that aren't there. But overall, I think they're right. It is actually a very, very good camera. Got a lot going for it. And it's, like I say, it's a workhorse camera. It's a jack of all trades, master of one or two. But I think for most people, you'll get a lot of use out of it and some really high image quality from both stills and video. So thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas to you all.